Hi there, this is the experimentalist at Macara, and today we are going to be looking at how do we do UX audits. So we're going to see the process of how we go about finding flaws and other mistakes and errors that are happening on websites, apps, etc. This is our process, and I think other companies have their own, but this is how we do it at the moment. The process consists of 6 different steps, and those steps are: first, understanding, setting a criteria for the heuristics, familiarizing ourselves with the journey and different parts that are relevant for us to evaluate, auditing, so doing the evaluation themselves. Then we have summarizing the findings, so distilling whatever we learn and convert that into insights. And then finally, there's a presentation and report to the client. Let's start with the first one, understanding. In this case, what we are looking for in the first step is to ensure the optimal selection of journeys. But also, what we want to get here is some of the criteria or perspectives that we need to include on how we evaluate the platform, that being the app or the website. So first things that we are going to do is understand the business objectives. So what is the final outcome that they want? So one of the business objectives that you might hear the most are the following ones: either lowering customer service calls or increasing the click-through, the products, and being able to have that funnel go through quite easily, etc., depending on what type of website it is. Another thing that we go through is competitors. This doesn't happen in all the cases if we are very familiar with the sector that they are in. This is basically some sort of research to understand the patterns that happen in their sectors, and that might involve downloading apps from competitors, looking at their websites, how they communicate things, etc., before we go through their stuff. And as I say, this changes depending on if we are interested to go directly blind to all this evaluation, or we would like to know slightly more about this. And this also might change the position depending on the project itself. After that, we have the site and app goals. What do I mean by this? Some business might use websites or app for a specific goal, and we want to know what that is. Capture more users or to do any X or Y. Finally, and I think is the most important, is to understand the user. We need to understand who they are, what they're doing, if they have different user types, and then also what are their objectives and what they are trying to do with this website. So those are the 4 ones that we tend to do with a client together to understand how can we start looking at the website from these different perspectives. Second one is setting the criteria. This one, depending on the project, we tend to use the heuristics that are used mostly, the Nielsen ones. There are the 10 different heuristics that we use the most, and have already a template with questions related to them. In some cases, we might customize the heuristics to the type of journey, and we do that because we think it's better to have other heuristics that haven't been considered. So that's the second one. Third one is familiarizing, and here we are kind of like digging deeper into the journeys that have been selected, and normally those are selected either before or during this second step. So we are trying to familiarize ourselves with the site or the app. So while we are familiarizing with it, we might go through flows and start teasing what is the information architecture, how those journeys are. And we do a light version of or quick assessment of the issues that we are finding through this first phase of familiarization. And also we do a recording of our first reactions. The reason to do this is because as you go auditing later, you realize that you get way more familiar with it to a point that you become desensitized. When you record yourself at the beginning, you are less biased through how the process is working, which means that if you go back to these recordings, you might see things that you forgot that were there before because you are desensitized. So here we're trying to look if we have to rescope some of the projects based on the flaws that we found, meaning how much time we're gonna be doing this project and how difficult it might be to pull some of the issues. And also, as I said before, maintain objectivity with the recording of the first reactions. The fourth step is auditing. And in auditing, we are evaluating what is happening in this website or app, in this interface. So we are describing issues that happen, pointing them, describing them, indicating what is the severity of those issues, mostly individually at this point, and then categorizing them in the different heuristics mentioned before. Finally, we are doing also an identification of patterns. So if some of these issues repeat, we go back to them and we make sure that they are not repeated. If they are repeated, then we categorize these patterns that we are seeing on the website. Step 5 is summarizing the findings. Here we are documenting mostly the patterns that we saw here. There might be a lot of them or little of them. So this one might happen less depending on the nature of the issues that we raised. But normally we get quite a lot of patterns that need to be addressed. And we are naming those patterns, making sure that they are understandable, helping our clients to understand and remember most of these issues by writing them, documenting them with images, and also documenting the process so they are aware of what we've done before. We are also adding recommendations on how to tackle most of these problems that they have at individual issue level, but also at the pattern level. And I think for them it's more interesting to tackle those issues at the pattern level or in a group, because it's easier to put them on the backlog later on. The last step is presenting and reporting. In the presentation, there will be indication of all the issues, mostly at the pattern level, with examples of the individual level issues. There is a process of sense checking with the client if they agree with these issues that have been raised, mostly to make sure that what we are pointing is correct. So we do this, not just at this point, but we've been doing it in most of the steps, but this is the final sense check. Then we prioritize the work, or at least we try to do that, having recommendations and telling them which of these issues have more impact to the user or impact to the business. And finally, we go through roles and responsibilities. This doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes you just prioritize the work and hope for the best so they can take it over. In other cases, we try to put who is going to be doing what based on how much we know the team. In some cases, after the prioritization, we might continue the work ourselves. So here we're trying to make sense of the issues and ensure the continuity of the work, which we think is very important because we've identified this and we don't want to make our job be thrown to the garbage. This is the full process that we follow at Macara for auditing. I hope this was useful and see you on the next one. Cheers.